Hi, my name is Amish.aggarwala. I'm an advocate practicing at the Supreme Court of India. Do you think that if someone has committed murder, they should not be given legal representation? A lot of people think so. However, in my experience as a criminal lawyer, I know that things are never as black and white as one might like to think. A great example that comes to my mind is this one case that I dealt with several years ago. In fact, around the time of inception of my career as a lawyer. I was representing the family of the deceased person, someone who was murdered on the night of Diwali in a small town called Rohtak in Haryana by several members of the same family, which attacked the deceased person when he was alone, when he was unarmed, and as I mentioned earlier, on the night of Diwali. Several of these individuals went to jail, and I was representing the family members of the deceased person in trying to get justice for their dead relative. But when I looked at the facts of the case and what had actually transpired, or at the very least what motivated these individuals in order to go ahead and commit that cold-blooded murder, was this entire story of how there were two young people. One of them got into a fight with the other. Let's call them Ajay and Ravi. Ajay and Ravi got into a fight with each other. Ajay fired at Ravi, because of which Ajay was arrested and incarcerated. Ajay died in custody, and because of that, Ajay's family thought that since Ajay had fired at Ravi, it was Ravi who got Ajay murdered in jail. Therefore, Ajay's family showed up on the night of Diwali, and several of them ganged up together and murdered Ravi. The moment you hear this story, you might now sympathize with the so-called alleged murderers and understand where they were coming from, and then perhaps suggest that they would indeed be eligible to legal representation. In fact, Ram Jethmalani was, in a very famous interview, asked how he has the audacity to represent people such as Manu Sharma, who it was clear from public perception who do not deserve any legal representation. Ram Jethmalani, God bless his soul, said, and I agree with him, that every single individual, no matter what, deserves being represented by a lawyer. Let us take something more controversial perhaps. What about the Delhi gang rape victims, or the Delhi gang rape victims' perpetrators? Do they not deserve legal representation? Do they not deserve lawyers? It is not just a good defense, but also defenses in law that are available to every single person, without which, if they are incarcerated, it will be a huge travesty of justice. If today the Delhi gang rape accused persons, or now convicts, were not given the patient hearing time and again by all courts, were not given adequate legal representation at all stages, they would have ultimately been acquitted by the Honorable Supreme Court. This is what happened very recently in another rape case, where on public demand, a fast track court, these fast track courts have been moving with blazing fast speed, and this fast track court convicted the accused persons. The matter went up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court acquitted these persons, taking into account the speedy way the matter was taken up, charges were drawn, counsels were not given any time to prepare the case, and a judgment of guilty was passed by the court within perhaps I think 30 or 32 days. Ultimately, they could have probably been actual perpetrators, but they walked just because at the very end, the apex court, the two judges sitting over there, felt that the investigation was not properly done. Even otherwise, even if the most gruesome of an act is committed by someone, rape, murder, dacoity, maiming a body part, causing severe injury, throwing acid on someone's face, if the person is perhaps insane, if the person is perhaps someone who is 12 or 13 years of age, if the person did so under a threat to his or her own life, is that person not allowed or not entitled to any legal representation? Very recently, a Gurgaon court convicted and gave death sentence to the security guard of a Gurgaon judge's wife and son. He murdered the wife and the son. No plea of insanity was taken on any occasion in that 100-page judgment by the defense counsel. No experts were called to determine whether this person at the time of committing these acts was sane or not. All of these circumstances and observations in this particular case warrant me to believe that the accused person, the convict now, was not adequately represented. What if in the future someone who is clinically insane runs out of an asylum, a mental asylum, walks somewhere and commits a murder? Would he not be entitled to the benefit of the plea of insanity which is provided for by the Indian Penal Code itself? These are all circumstances which and examples which show us why a lawyer and adequate legal representation, as well as adequate time, adequate resources of the state are required at every juncture, so that the rule of law is maintained and the faith of the justice system is maintained in the public. However, of course, there are people who say that justice delayed is justice denied. However, justice denied is also justice denied, and much more surely so.